Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Merrillville Town Council meeting for today, Tuesday, April 9th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Oh God, our Father, we thank you for this day, for the changing of the seasons. Father, we see your handiwork so everywhere. So Father, we pause this night just to worship you and to say thank you for your goodness to us. Thank you for your protection over our community, for the guidance, for the wisdom, for these men and women who have been given the leadership responsibilities. Father, our prayer continues to be for them to continue to grow in wisdom and knowledge and understanding of how to make this a community that is safe for kids, where families will thrive and grow. Father, where things will happen and your name will be honored throughout the streets and among our families. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Before we begin our moment of silence, I would like to ask everyone to please keep in mind our Police Commissioner Eugene Ward, who passed away last week. Thank you all. Clerk Treasurer January, would you please call the roll, Council?
Vice President Neal. Here. Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
Here.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Present.
Councilwoman Uselak.
Present.
Councilman Pettit.
Here.
Councilwoman Hardaway. President Bella.
Here.
6 present.
6 present, thank you. Moving on tonight to petitions, communications, acknowledgements, and remonstrations. We have a Redevelopment Commission annual report. Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Mr. President, this is an annual report that needs to be submitted. Was prepared by our financial advisor, London Whitty, specifically Bob Swentz. Outlines our debt summary for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2023. Also highlights the calendar year election of officers and the amount of funds on hand as of December 31st. That being said, I'll make a motion to approve this for any discussion.
Mr. President, if I may,
Mr. Griffin.
I thank you. Mr. President, this is a relatively new law. Previously, the Redevelopment Commission was the sole authority over the report, and it had to approve it before it could be filed, which is April 15th is the deadline. In this particular case, the law has been changed. There not only has to be action by the Redevelopment Commission, which it took last month, but we just acknowledge it here. There's no requirement in the statute that it be formal action to approve, but some action to acknowledge that it was filed with you so the record is clear would be helpful in this case under the terms of the new law. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Mr. Pettit, would you clarify your motion to state that just we're acknowledging the receipt of the report from the Redevelopment Commission?
Okay, Mr. President, I modify the motion to acknowledge receipt of the Merrillville Redevelopment Commission annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, or second by Mrs. Uselak. Mr. Pettit with the motion. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on tonight to public hearings. We have none on the agenda. We do have some attorney review of proof of publication. Is that right, Joe?
Yes. I've been able to review the proofs of publication. They appear to be in order and conforming with Indiana code at this time. So I suggest that action take place.
Mr. President?
Mr. Griffin.
I beg your pardon. I'm not sure that none is correct. Both these ordinances at your last meeting were approved on first reading. I believe that those notices are for a public hearing because they both involve additional appropriations. So I hope you'll forbear us. That is my error, not catching that in my review.
Not a
I do
problem.
believe a public hearing is in order.
Very good.
And I look to the town attorney to verify that the date is correct in the proof for tonight.
Correct.
Thank you.
So we would then have moved to public hearing for 24. 2405, is that right, Joe?
Yes.
For ordinance 2405. Mr. Griffin, what is the synopsis of that?
I don't have that before me, Mr. President. I beg your pardon. But I believe one of the two involve a request from the Street Department for MVH, and the other one I just have not a chance to review. I actually gave my packet to the town attorney because he would like to have one for the meeting.
This is
So I'm just working off the
Got it, Joe?
agenda.
Yeah, this is MVH.
It's creating funds.
Yeah, and that is, I think,
Authorizing
to allow
additional
for the purchase.
appropriations in the 2024 Local Roads and Street Fund.
Very good. Is there any public comment on this ordinance? Let the record show there's no public comment. This can go forward. The next item is 2406, Joe.
2406, this is an ordinance, the town of Merrillville, Lake County, Indiana, appropriating additional monies within the various fire protection territory funds for the year 2024, not including the current budget.
Is there any public comment on this ordinance 24-06? The amounts are $165,000. New appropriations. Let the record show there's no public comment. Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Moving on tonight to the consent agenda, we have the accounts payable register voucher approval for April 9th, the AP register summary for ARP purchases for April 9th, and the approval of the town council meeting minutes of March 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, second by Mrs. Haynes Edwards.
Neil. Neil.
Seconded.
Mrs. Neal, you got it. Thank you for the clarity. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Moving on tonight to the presentation of declarations, we have a Women's History Month declaration. And tonight, like last year, I believe, right, Ellen?
Like last year.
It's going to be read by Ellen Hennessy.
For those of you who may not know me, I'm Ellen Hennessy Harstad, and I'm president of Prevent Child Abuse Lake County. And I'd like to thank the town and the town council for the wonderful decorations out front. There's the pinwheels, the marquee that specifies that April is Prevent Child Abuse in Lake County Month. And the pinwheel signifies the childhood that we hope all our children in Lake County will have, that they will be safe, cared for, and loved. Town of Merrillville Proclamation, State of Indiana. The Town of Merrillville designating the month of April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas every child deserves to live in a safe and loving household, yet for hundreds and thousands of children across our nation, abuse and neglect are a tragic reality. During Child Abuse Prevention Month, our country stands as one to condemn and combat abuse in all of its forms, including physical, emotional, and sexual, as well as online sexual exploitation. We raise awareness about the risk factors that can lead to child abuse and neglect, and we highlight the importance of supporting families to prevent child maltreatment. As a town, we must work together to prevent and address child abuse and ensure that every child can grow up in a safe environment and live a happy, prosperous life. And whereas in this financial year, or in the federal fiscal year 2019, 4.4 million reports were made to Child Protective Services. And whereas our children are our most valuable resource and will shape the future of the town of Merrillville, and whereas American women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation, and more importantly in Merrillville. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of our children. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. Whereas the Merrillville Lions Club has brought this important issue to our attention, we recognize the importance of bringing this matter to the attention of our residents. Now, therefore, it will be resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Merrillville, Indiana, does hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and call upon the residents of Merrillville to dedicate ourselves to recognizing, observing, discussing, and educating others with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and other activities to improve the quality of life for our children and the families throughout the town of Merrillville, Indiana.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve this.
Second. Motion to approve. Oh, I'm, motion, oh, you gonna do it? Yes, motion to approve. Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on tonight to standing committee reports, Budget and Finance, Vice President Neal.
No report, President Bell.
Council Affairs, Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Mr. President, we had a committee meeting last week finalizing some ordinances with Mr. Svetnoff, and Mr. Hall on several items that the Chief of Police and the Fire Chief we discussed a while back. So those 4 ordinances will be on first reading tonight.
Saw that. Thank you. Street Department, Mrs. Uzelak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I had a few phone calls from different subdivisions in Merrillville about sidewalks. So I'm waiting for Steve to get back to me with his schedule to see when we are going to put in some new sidewalks. And that's about all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Elections, Public Relations, and Town Beautification, Mrs. Neal.
Thank you, President Bella. Just a few updates on the town beautification. We are still in the midst of ordering plants. Steve King and Tracy are working very diligently and hard on getting those things done. I don't know if you guys have noticed, there are some new signs that are posted along Broadway that the town has now. They have up, I think it's about, I only saw like 4 or 5 of them. I know Angie was working on that. I told her I would mention it at the meeting tonight, but I did actually drive back around to look at them, so they're on the poles going down Broadway. And it's going to be more to come on that to get more of the business people involved with actually being able to have one of those flags posted with their business posted on it also. And yesterday, we were able to meet the group together to talk about our new town signs and the new park signs also with I can't think of the name of the company, with Bob, and we met with
Robinson.
Robinson, yes. And Matt Lake, and we all were able to meet and to come up with some designs and to move forward with getting some new signs so when we're entering into the gateway signs, when we're entering into the town, and also looking into replacing all of our park signs also. So we're working diligently on that and more information to come.
And our new gateway signs will have the town slogan on them, won't they, Mrs.
Yes, they will have the new town slogan.
Very good. Thank you. Environmental Affairs, Mr. Pettit.
No report.
Personnel Policy and Employee Benefits, Ms. Hardaway. Mr. Griffin, did she have anything for the council this evening? I know she's ill.
Mr. President, there was an email, I believe, sent to all members of the council, including you, reporting that she's ill and could not be here tonight, so she apologizes for that. Although she doesn't need to apologize, she can't help being ill. And the reports that you have on this matter are before you. The Personnel Committee has had an ongoing work on, part of my report talks about it, the work on the revisions to the employee manual pursuant to its guidance, where she has to supervise that. We're almost at the point where the ordinance that we're proposing to change some of the terms will be sent to department heads, which is a requirement in the manual to get their feedback. And then there'll be one more visit on it for the Personnel Committee. We also are continuing to make revisions or reviews of the search for a park director. I've just received today some of the resumes to review for the director, but we're not prepared to make a recommendation of any kind at this time. I think that's the extent of a report for you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
You're welcome, Mr. President.
Moving on tonight to public safety. Again, Ms. Hardaway, I don't know if she had anything else on that.
No.
I don't have any updates for it either, President Bella.
Thank you. Economic Development, Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Mr. President. Before the meeting tonight, we had a council redevelopment commission workshop before the town council meeting, and we discussed several items. The first of which is the previous administration made a motion and contribution effort to the Boys and Girls Club development on the 3-acre parcel up at the Dean and Barbara White Community Center, and we have found a mechanism. Mr. Griffin, Mr. Svetnoff, and our financial advisor and bond counsel have found a mechanism in which to do that, whereby we will take $200,000 off the top of our TIF draw each year and give that to the Boys and Girls Club for the capital investment of building a new club on that 3-acre site. Conversely, as we heard 2 weeks ago and read in a letter, and I apologize for getting emotional, that Andrean is staying at 5959 Broadway. To that end, I, as president, proposed to the commission that we do a similar agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to Andrean, whereby we take $100,000 off the top of the TIF draw for 10 years for $1 million, specifically to develop a secondary access out of the Andrean campus, preferably on 61st Avenue. This is similar to one of the projects that was outlined in the grant we are giving right now to the Merrillville Community School Corporation, $400,000 a year for 5 years. They're developing a access entrance at Filer off on Harrison Street. So we thought that was in line with that. Again, Michael and Joe and Bob and Tom will be developing that and bringing it to the Redevelopment Commission. We also talked about the purchase of the fire truck and the development and construction of the Southside Fire Station in the 99,000 to 9,300 block of Colorado, which has been identified by Chief Yurga. Michael and the financial people have laid that out. We're going to look at that. They need to get us some costs. I am still trying to secure the 6-acre land on Colorado with the property owner, so there'll be more news to come. And one item I'm going to turn over to Michael to fully explain, as he does so well, the need for a capital spending plan for the Redevelopment Commission because of the investments that we make and what we do. We have the Whitcomb Street corridor in Councilor Uzelak's ward. We have the fire station. We have the 3 grants that I spoke of briefly. Michael, do you want to outline the capital plan that you're suggesting?
Thank you very much, Councilor Pettit. Mr. President, Madam Vice President, Mr. Clerk Treasurer, this is actually something that both I and Senator Dalton through Trista, and actually the Clerk Treasurer I know embraces it. We want to always have involved in this because their office actually maintains that record for us. We do need to have a capital asset or a capital policy. Some of that we've already introduced to you by talking to our staff members about. We just like to know what their rotation plans are for their moving stock. So the automobiles, the larger equipment, that cool tool that does that swamp thing that I love so much over in Stormwater Department, I never remember the name of, but when I see it, I'm just in awe of it. We just want to know what their intentions are over the useful life of those assets for replacement. We think that we can manage the capital planning for that much better if we have an idea of when their rotations are. Not to alter them, but to make a better choice about financing them. The Redevelopment Commission, I wanted that to be addressed at in particular because largely we've not relied on our Article 13 financing ability under the Indiana Constitution that the Civil Corporation does. We've utilized a lot of the tools that the redevelopment or the redevelopment authority, the redevelopment commission, the redevelopment authority have. So a lot of the capital planning really needs to be in, we need the participation of the redevelopment department to be part of that. But the goal would be to make it a policy that would sweep the entire town with all of the arms that have the ability to do debt financing or capital financing to be a participant in that. It's a best practice. It's considered a planning tool, and it'll help us, hopefully, over time, lower our capital costs. Such plans also are well scored by the people that look at our credit worthiness, like Standard & Poor's and Moody's. So those are the kinds of things that will also, by virtue of the kind of ratings that we'll earn by doing this sort of thing, it'll improve our credit signature, and therefore our cost of capital will go down. And I'm all for cheap money. If there's no questions, I'll be seated.
Thank you, Michael. That's
Thank
all,
you.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation, Mrs. Uselak.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I rode around today, and with this beautiful warm weather, we had a lot of kids playing in the parks. So I'm waiting for the park department to come out and mow, which should be soon, because it looks like the grass is growing. And that's all I have now. Thank you.
Maybe Mr. Griffin could follow up with, make sure, the grass is.
Yeah,
growing
the
now,
grass
finally.
is growing. I
Finally.
think it should be mowed by now.
Thank you, Mrs. Uselak.
Thank you.
Moving on tonight to the Utility Liaison. Our chairperson is Mrs. Leona Chandler Felton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a notice here that we will have our first meeting on April 16th at 5 p.m. here at the Town Hall. But there may be a possibility of a change that needs to be done for Thursday as opposed to Tuesday.
Well, let us
Mr.
know,
Griffin.
get proper information out, yeah.
Mr. President, Madam
Please.
Chairwoman, we'll do what you ask. The only instructions I had was to make sure we had it at 5 o'clock, and I didn't get guidance about the preference of the day. If that's your preference, I will make work of following up so that we still have time to do a different notice. That's easy.
Okay.
And we'll make sure the other people to be made aware. If you prefer Thursday,
Yes,
I believe I can make that happen, and I will make
would-
work of that if that's your instruction.
you too.
I would prefer Thursday as well, Michael. I will be at the LaPorte County Board of Zoning Appeals Tuesday night, so I would not be able to attend.
Then it sounds like Thursday's a better day, and I will make work for that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Moving on tonight to special committees, abandoned and blighted properties, Mrs. Haynes Edwards.
Mr. President, thank you. We met the Abandoned Blighted Properties Committee, we met April 2nd here at the town of Merrillville. And we went over a couple of ordinances that we are looking to have Joe go over. Am I correct with that? And so we will do those, get those done, have those ordinances reviewed, and then they'll be able to hopefully be passed, and then we'll have a workshop so that we can properly educate the people that are on the board and the newcomers, being myself, so that we can have quality performance with that committee.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
The Semi-Quincentennial Committee.
Stop and think about that.
That's,
May I continue?
yeah, Counselor Haynes Edwards.
Semi-quincentennial committee.
That's it.
We have nothing to
Nice.
report at this time.
Nice job. I'm just going to call it the Shauna Committee from now on. That's too much.
That is
Thanks for that, Mr. Griffin. Could have come up with a
President,
catchy
that's a
name,
big
like-
word that means 250, and she
Yeah.
in part was chosen as chair because she can say it correctly.
That's good, I appreciate that. Special Town Projects, Counselor Neal.
Yes, thank you, President Bella. Just to give updates of the upcoming events, our June 19th celebration will be on June 15th. We're having a movie night in the park at the Dean and Barbara Community Center. It's going to start at approximately 5 p.m. It's going to start at approximately 5 p.m. in the evening. Aside of movies, we'll have some outdoor activities for the children to participate in prior to the movie. July 3rd, are our town fireworks, which will be at Merrillville High School at dusk. July 4th is our annual July 4th parade that will start at the Dean and Barbara Community Center at 11 a.m. The applications for anyone who wants to participate with a float, or if you have a marching band or a dance group, you can go online and get the application and get that submitted. I think it's due in on the 7th of, by the 7th of June is the deadline to get those turned in. We did have approximately 40 participants last year, so we are really looking to double that this year and get more community involvement. So please, participate with that. And that's all, President Bella.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Lot of
Rhonda,
things-
what was the date of movie night?
The 15th,
15th of
July.
July?
I'm sorry, June 15th. It's for the Juneteenth celebration.
Okay.
Thank you. Dean and Barbara White Community Center, Mr. Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had our first, we resurrected the committee and had our first meeting last week. Shauna and I met with two staff members, Mr. Griffin, Mr. January joined us later, and we went through, I guess, what's best described as a punch list of items that have been observed by several council members and Mr. Griffin, and I can't speak highly enough about Michael and the yeoman's work he's done taking over while we look for a parks director to be down there on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday basis or a daily basis. With that being said, the committee, Sean and I, would like to make some recommendations to the full council. For full disclosure, some of these dollar amounts are minuscule, but we felt like we probably needed to present them to the full council. And I believe, Michael, do they have this packet, or is this just mine?
No, we haven't.
You have, everyone has that packet. I guess maybe I turn to Joe and Michael. The total is $75,716.48. Do we want one motion, Joe, or do we need to do them, because of the dollar amount, do we need to do them individually?
You can do them in mass.
All right, then, what I'll report, Mr. President, is there's an estimate for Cover Sports for floor covering, and this is, I think, Michael, covering for the basketball courts when we have the MMA events and things like that to protect the 3 basketball courts. That quote is for $44,639.60. There is a quote from Johnson Control for fire alarm and protection for $6,088. There's a riding floor scrubber and cleaner for $4,000, not to exceed $4,000. We decided to buy 2 commercial vacuum cleaners at $2,000. I believe those were a piece, weren't they, Mike?
No, that's not to exceed.
Not to exceed for
Yes,
both?
for both.
For both, not to exceed for both. Door repair and motorized ADA, not to exceed the highest quote of $4,076. American Structure Point work for $8,500. I believe that is for work that's being done on the overflow lot for the Pop Warner practice area. The Houghton Benton partition drywall repairs, door handle installation, reinstall bar gates, and repair concession stand doors at the ball field. Again, the grand total on all those is $76,716.48, which I believe we discussed, Shauna, as a committee, and Michael, that this would come out of the capital fund that's with Legacy, correct?
That is correct. That's why we're asking for this special permission.
Councilman Pettit, I think it's actually 75, not 76,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you believe I got new glasses, Joe? $75,716.48. I make a motion that we allocate these out of the capital fund of the Dean and Barbara White Community Center.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak. Question for Mr. Griffin.
Yes, Mr.
Obviously,
President.
we have these funds available, but can you just verify that before we take a vote on this?
Mr. President, as of December 31st of 2023, that fund had on deposit to its credit, which is in your reports as well, the very back page, over $400,000.
Yes.
So we're very confident of that. And that did not include 2 contributions, one from Methodist Hospitals and one from Milestone, that simply got the way to say it is one never came from Milestone. The other one did come to the town, and actually it was deposited because it was a contribution and donation. It was deposited to the local donation fund. However, those had been under the terms of our agreement with Legacy. The requirement was that they be directed to Legacy for investment because they have investment privileges that we don't have as a unit of government. So once that was corrected, so that would have been reflected in the 2023 balance. It just isn't. But that has also been deposited, $10,000 for the case of Methodist and $5,000 for the case of Milestone. So that balance will be increased by that amount, plus whatever the contributions are pursuant to the agreements with all the sponsors that you had negotiated for each of the years. And to my knowledge, I believe this is the first time that we've taken a draw from that fund.
Yes, that is correct. And for the benefit of the new council members, some of these sponsorships that we have sold in the Dean and Barbara White Community Center, some have paid on a yearly basis, some pay all a lump sum of 5 years. We did 5-year sponsorships. So, for example, the Bozak Court, the basketball courts are $77,000 over a 5-year period, and they can pay that in a lump sum or they can pay it yearly as managed by Legacy.
Any other discussion on the motion for approval of these repairs at the community center? Joe, voice vote okay in this?
Let's do a roll call.
Roll call vote, please, Mr. January.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
President Bella.
Yes.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries, Mr. Pettit.
And, Mr. President, I will get with Shauna and Keisha and find, as we did previously, a standing date for that committee. Typically, it had been the fourth Thursday of every month at 5:30. I want to check with the ladies' work schedules, make sure that we're in concert on that. So we've got other issues to discuss down there.
And the other items that were on the punch list, as you mentioned,
Yes.
are those being worked on?
Yes, we talked with staff about those, taking care of a lot of that stuff has been addressed already, I believe, correct, Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, Mr. President, I beg your pardon, and Councilor Pettit, we have the memorandum of that meeting. It contains in what we captured was the discussion by that board. It went through every one of the points, and there was a response to every one of the points in nearly every case that either was a plan for addressing it or it had been addressed already, except for 2, which have to do with the nuance of the conversation in the course of the meeting. But I believe that will be distributed to the council as well.
Oh,
we expect for you to have it on your docket for you to act to approve that set of the memorandum of that proceeding at your next meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Pettit?
That's all.
Moving on tonight to Department and Commission reports, Lake County Solid Waste Management District, Councilor Neal.
No report.
Okay. Ms. Hardaway isn't here. Stormwater Management Resources, Mr. Lake.
Yeah, really quick. We completed and submitted our MS4 annual reports to IDM. State Coordinator Stacy Goodwin received them and confirmed that everything was in order. We had an emergency repair that's going on right now, actually, at 61st and Johnson. A utility truck, we don't know if it's NIPSCO or Marathon Pipeline, ran over a 60-inch line that is actually part of Turkey Creek Lateral 6, a regulated drain, damaged the pipe, so we have a contractor in there doing repairs, and I'm coordinating with the Lake County Surveyor's Office as well, since it's a Lake County regulated drain. I got to thank Little Calumet River Basin Development Commission. They officially approved $350,000 towards the 97th and Grand project. So, again, can't thank them enough for their support financially.
Thank you.
It spreads our money around and it gets us to where we can do more projects and implement more projects throughout the town. Next meeting, I'll have an Arbor Day proclamation prepared for the council to read at the next meeting. We also have the apple orchard project coming up. Trees will be delivered May 6th and planted May 7th. Rosenbaum will have 176 trees. Prusen Park will have 103 trees, 5 different species of trees. And again, this is a U.S. Forest Service project. Last year, we had significant rain. All of our detention facilities and areas we did projects performed flawlessly. We did have a couple calls within a GSD service area on sanitary backups. So we're coordinating with GSD on things that they can do in their system and try to figure out why the system is not, or is receiving some INI. And we got some ideas on how to resolve some of that and work with them. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh, Mr. Lake, I have to thank you for doing that email to Mr. Rodriguez with the park on Jennings Street. The construction equipment is still sitting there, and children are playing on it, and naturally, the residents are concerned. So I thought I would bring it up again. Maybe you could go forth and contact him again.
Yeah, his response was he anticipates doing the project this summer. So that was a Ball Diamond Park, I believe, was the name of the development.
That's on Jennings Street.
Yeah, it's a
Where
small development.
they are
3
supposed
houses.
to come in with a new development that was approved 2 years ago through the Plan Commission. He hasn't done anything, so I don't know when he's going to start building.
Yeah.
But equipment is sitting
Yeah,
there, which
I'll reach
should
out.
not be.
I'll reach back out to him and try to get a schedule from him confirmed so that we have an actual
Good.
construction schedule.
Thank you, and I also have to let you know, Mr. Emerson contacted me, the county surveyor, and they will be cleaning up the no-name ditch. I think I told you about it before, but he did contact me, and the residents there they're really happy.
Yeah, I believe that part's Kaiser Ditch, which is a bigger job.
Well, Kaiser Ditch was already done.
Yeah.
So now it'll be no-name ditch.
Okay,
Okay, but thank you for that.
okay, thanks.
Mr. President, I have 2 items for Matt.
Mr. Pettit.
Matt, thank you for scheduling the Massachusetts meeting. Bob, we'll meet next week. That was brought to our attention last meeting or the meeting before by Mr. Berger. And secondly, this is actually for Matt and Joe. I received a call today at work, and a lady said, "Where can I put a billboard, Sean?" And she describes this parcel. Well, she describes the parcel that is the retention pond for Cypress Equities. And obviously, Lamar, we already have a billboard on the bike trail there, Matt, at I-65. And I guess my question to you and Joe is, private or public, how are these retention ponds getting on the tax sale? Number one, I don't know if the tax sale is taking place, because tax bills aren't due till May 10th. But this lady was adamant that she bought it via proxy, so I told her to come see Sheila, pull the Mylar for Cypress Equities, and I'm sure it's gonna show utility and drainage
Yeah.
all the way back along the bike trail and back of Lowe's and all the way to Mississippi. I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I think you bought a worthless piece of property." So I hope there's not some kind of scam going, Joe, or how are these retention ponds getting put on a tax sale notice?
A lot of times what happens is there's another fee, like we have a stormwater fee on the tax bill, Little Cal has a fee on there. So if they don't have any taxes on them, but they have fees, if you don't pay your fees, they go to tax sale.
They do.
Yeah.
See, Cypress Equities
Yeah.
is in Dallas, Texas. And that's what I told her. I said, it may have gone to Dallas and gotten lost. So I'm just curious if the other retention ponds are gonna start popping up like this again. Joe and I, we've been through this before, buying back retention ponds out of subdivisions, and I'm trying to avoid that if we
Well,
can.
we haven't bought any retention ponds since I've been on duty.
Yeah, we bought the one in Sandpiper.
Well, that was,
Read it over.
okay, I should say, without our knowledge.
Yeah,
There were other ones sold previous to me.
right.
But at the end of the day, I think what we do is, Sean, every time we get a tax sale listing, we send it out to review to all staff. So if there are any parcels that are up for tax sale that need to be pulled off,
Right.
let us know immediately.
Yeah, it may not even be retention ponds. It could be vacant things that the town owns.
Right, yeah.
As
we've
well.
flagged those in the past, and a lot of times people get them thinking they can do something, and they can't do anything with them anyway.
Right.
So it's a revolving door, but it goes back on tax sales, what happened.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Fire Territory Board, Vice President Neal. Anything to report?
The next meeting will be next month.
Okay, thank you. Department head reports. Police Chief. Costa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Council. Good evening, everybody. Wanted to give you a report for the official numbers for March. We had approximately 2,200 calls for service. There was 47,138 miles that were racked up during the course of this. Approximately 39,000 of those miles were done by patrol, so that gives you a pretty good indication of how busy patrol has been. We had over 500 traffic stops. Of those 500, over 500, you had 310 citations that were written and 110 written warnings. We had 77 adult arrests. We saw a spike in domestic batteries and batteries, also vehicle thefts. And that's something I wanted to touch on. Over the last 3 weeks, we've been extremely busy with warrants, domestic batteries, auto thefts, and just regular batteries. One of the things I want to kind of point out to everybody as far as the public, a lot of the cars now have push-to-start buttons on them, and what a lot of people are doing is they're just leaving their key fob in the car. I urge everybody not to do that. Lock your car. It prevents a big problem from happening, right? So this has kept us pretty busy. The warrants, we've been coming across a lot of warrants. Most of them aren't from Merrillville. They're from other communities, but they've come through here. As I said, the hotels have been extremely busy, and that's where we've been getting a lot of our arrests from. Today, we are able to get our drones and canines together, and the teams were able to participate in a search and rescue mission, or mock search and rescue missions, and also man-tracking missions. Search and rescue missions would include two things that are very close to my heart, and that's elderly and little children. Those are the ones that always often go missing. So working as a team, this is a huge asset. Between the dogs and the drones working together, it gives us a lot better chances to locate who we're looking for. Same goes for man-tracking. Man-tracking is when we have an incident where somebody escapes or somebody runs from the police and we need to try and find them or locate them. We were able to use these drones and the dogs together. So we're working on making everybody a team versus individuals. And I feel that this is going in a great direction. And that's one of the things I wanted to leave everybody off with. K9 Goose yesterday caused quite a bit of a stir because we had got a lot of attention, good attention. We had somebody that escaped from the work release center and decided to go somewhere where he wasn't supposed to go. And people were uncomfortable there per se. And once we arrived, he tried to run out the back door and Goose was released. And needless to say, Goose takes his job pretty seriously. So he was able to apprehend this guy, and he's back in detention facilities where he should be. That's all I have.
Would Chief, please give Goose a treat from the council, would you please?
Absolutely.
A job well done. Ms. Shine, Planning and Building Department.
The Planning and Building Department is working right along with permits, roofs, sheds, pools. We're coming right along with that, but there's one thing that I would like, if I could, to admonish the business community to have, before they sign leases with individuals, to have the individuals come and check with the zoning department, because we're getting a massive amount of people who are going next door to the clerk treasurer's office and purchasing a business license, and then coming to find out that the business that they want to bring there, it is not zoned for that. So a mass amount of them, like maybe 5 and 6 a day. So I've asked the clerk treasurer, if they're not sure, to check with us, Brittany. She has been doing that, to check with us before they give out a business license, because we're having to give refunds back and all kind of things.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin, anything else?
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the council, Mr. Clerk Treasurer, I have before you the report for this month that I've been preparing for you. I hope it speaks for itself. If you have a question about anything in it, I'll be happy to answer it. Otherwise, I'll be pleased to be seated.
Thank you. Mr. January, before we move off this topic, would you share with us what our first check was from the food and beverage tax? And
We haven't
the
received the
percentage?
check. Yeah, we
Or
haven't
the
received the
amount?
check, but the amount is 37,000 and some change, and that's what 11% of the businesses are reporting that we anticipate collecting the money from. So if those numbers hold true, we should be able to collect over $300,000 a month.
Oh, very good. And when will we get a check? Or is it a direct deposit?
It's going to be direct deposit.
Very good. All right.
Well, I guess it begs the question,
That was for the
Mr.
month of
President.
February.
We need to educate the businesses.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask Eric, and Joe and I were talking about this at lunch. 11% participation, it is a law of Merrillville. I mean, it is a tax. Thereby, we need to figure out who is not paying or not participating. And yeah, a friendly reminder letter. If it doesn't improve, Eric, maybe a more stern letter from Attorney Svetnov.
Sure. Well, the Department of Revenue in the state of Indiana is going to do a lot to make sure that businesses are aware, because they understand exactly who's collecting taxes that are related, that should be subject to the food and beverage tax. So one of the first questions that they had for us when they saw the participation rate was, did we actually notify all of the businesses? And we had mailed out the information. So now I'm sure they're going to take some additional steps, and we're going to take additional steps to make sure that everybody is aware that this is a tax, and you should be collecting it every time you are selling such and such items. And over time, I think it'll probably take about 3 months, and we should be able to get an accurate figure in terms of what we should be able to expect on a monthly basis.
We also talked about having code enforcement, Chief, if you recall, going out with a flyer to the entities that should be collecting the tax, with just a reminder and educate the business owners. But I thought the state was going to get involved too, Michael. Remember, they said that we really didn't have to notify, that they would be telling the entities who should be taxing for this item what to do.
Mr. President, that was my understanding when we had our first correspondence. They did want to see the letter that we sent out. They wanted to verify that. That was back in December when we had that first pressure to get those out. We used what we first contacted the Lake County Health Department. It was your good idea to suggest that any health licensing that they gave out would probably involve an FAB tax collector. That for reasons that surpasseth my understanding, those are public records, but trying to get them to feel comfortable sharing those with us, I don't know what I needed else to do but go down there personally. So in my panic to make sure that we could do it, the Clerk Treasurer's Office was profoundly cooperative, and we were able to take just the list of our business licensees and send that out. I shared an anecdote with you about the first day that it was supposed to be collected. I went specifically to see if I was going to be taxed about it and asked for the manager. So I've been uber nerding that a little bit while I've been here. We've already taken steps to try to revive the idea of a small card that can be given out that we can have code enforcement do. The building administrative assistant to both the council and to me and I had a conversation today about, we know that we can get general mailing that can be addressed to just residents and the zip code for a very low rate, and it can go there without having to name people. We're going to find out if there's also a similar service that the United States Postal Service will provide us for businesses. And we hope we can craft then, if that's permitted, we'll craft a letter to all of them to indicate some of you may be complying, but many of you are not. We wanted to remind you that this is a tax that's due. Now, what I'm not clear about is that I don't know how quickly to do reconciliation. So what happens is they get the receipt for the sales tax. There should have been a corresponding inquiry about why that's not aligned with your food and beverage tax if you didn't collect it at all. I don't know how they're staffed in Department of Revenue, and I'm not clear how quickly that can be enforced, but it is technically correct. Those people will be liable for it at some point, and they'll have to collect it. I think they're trying to be soft about this at the inception of these. And I will make a call to some of my former colleagues that have had these in place for a time. The clerk treasurer of Nashville, they've had this tax for a very long time, and I'll see it. She's also served a very long time. So I will ask her about her experiences when it was first implemented, if she recalls them, to get some advice they may have for us as well.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, but we're going to take steps to try to assist the indoor with, indoor, that's an interesting way to refer to them, I guess. Yeah. To try to get higher compliance, because it's important to our plans for those resources.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. January.
You're welcome.
Moving on tonight to general orders, we have first reading ordinances, ordinance 24-07. It's an ordinance of the town of Merrillville that is changing the alarm systems ordinance to be retitled Police Calls for Service. Mr. Svetnov, do you want to explain what we're doing here with this one? We talked about it
Mr.
earlier.
Bella, this ordinance is designed to reduce police calls for the service within the town of Merrillville. What we're doing in this ordinance is retitling it to police calls for service. We're changing the definitional section of the ordinance itself. We're putting in a penalties applicable for false alarms or for police calls for service. And we're also establishing a violations and penalties for police calls for service in the ordinance itself. So that's sum and substance of the ordinance.
Thank you very much. Counselors, what is your feeling?
Mr. President, approve, okay.
Chair, I recognize Mrs. Uselak for a motion. Mr. Pettit, would you like to second
Second,
it?
I will second it.
Thank you.
Open for discussion. Chief, this is one that you worked on, right, with the attorney?
Correct.
Okay.
This is one of those that I'm pretty thankful and I'm hoping it passes. I'm thankful it's going to happen because what it was doing is we were getting a lot of what could be considered nuisance calls, not really police matters. And what it was doing is it was tying up police resources for, I hate to say it, but silly things that we shouldn't be responding to. So this is going to be one of those ordinances that really is going to help us.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, Mr. January, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
President Bella.
Yes.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries. Moving on tonight to ordinance 24-08. It's an ordinance of the town of Merrillville, which would be used by the owner for illegal activities and declaring the same a public nuisance. Mr. Svetnov.
Basically, what we're going to do in this ordinance is hold persons and property owners accountable for acquiescing in, ignoring, tolerating, permitting, or participating in the use of property for criminal, illegal activity, unhealthy or unsafe conditions or activities once receiving notice that such activity is occurring within the town of Merrillville. What we've done in this ordinance is, again, go ahead and beef up the definitional section. We've defined criminal, illegal activity and unsafe use within the real estate. We basically talk about penalties and adopt some other sections which aid us in the enforcement of this ordinance as well.
This is what we call the nuisance ordinance, I believe. Is that right, Chief?
Yes, it's the public nuisance ordinance.
Very good.
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit with a second by Mrs. Uselak for approval of ordinance 24-08 on first reading. Questions or counsel from the council? Questions or comments from the council? Excuse me. Hearing none, Mr. January, roll call, please.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pettit,
Aye.
President Bella.
Aye.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, the motion carries. Moving on tonight to ordinance 24-09 is an ordinance amending the town code sections 12-91 entitled Parking in Yards and 12-188 entitled Definitions and repealing all town code sections with ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith. Mr. Svetnov.
Again, what we do in this ordinance, Mr. President, is basically expand the definition of parking in yards. We expand it and we focus in on the parking in yards itself. Secondly, we expand the definitional section and to clean up that area. So with this is another enforcement mechanism that the police department can use to get rid of unsightly parking within yards. So it's our recommendation that you accept this ordinance.
Thank you. Chief, I think we called this one the parking ordinance. Is this
Yes,
going to
sir.
help out?
Yep, absolutely.
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval of ordinance 24-09 on first reading. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, Mr. January.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Aye.
President Bella.
Aye.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries. Moving on tonight to 24-10, ordinance of the town of Merrillville, entitling zoning off-street parking and repealing all town code sections of ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith. Counselor?
Mr. President, on this ordinance, what we do is we are going ahead and amending this town ordinance to clean up the definition of off-street parking. We're expanding the definitions of storage containers, dumpsters, commercial vehicles, and flexible parking structures or facilities, because that is what has been identified throughout the town. And then we have a very lengthy discussion of off-street parking enforcement mechanisms and so on under the zoning code itself. So we're at this time of the opinion that we should go ahead and enforce this ordinance.
Anything to add, Chief Nucis?
No, we've been seeing an influx of semi-trucks just parking wherever they want to park. This is one of those where we're going to be able to enforce it. We're also probably going to start seeing a lot of impounding of these semi-trucks when they're parked when they're not supposed to be parked. So this is another great one and that I'm extremely thankful for.
Just giving the police
Thanks, Chief.
department more tools in their toolbox. Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Chair, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit and a second by everybody else.
Very good.
Chair, will recognize Mrs. Uselak. Might as well just keep it going.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this ordinance? I do have a question. Joe, can we read these on second reading tonight, or since there's a,
No, since there's penalty.
yeah, okay.
Penalties.
I thought so. Any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none. Mr. January, would you take the roll call, please?
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Aye.
President Bella.
Aye.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries.
Mr. President, before we move on to second readings, through my Council Affairs Committee, Chief, if you and Joe and I know there are other ordinances. We tackled the first 4. We need to get to the next batch, and I'll call a committee meeting when you and Ricardo are ready. I think Ed had some, didn't Chief Yerga have some too?
Yeah, I believe he has some as well.
Okay, we need to tackle the next batch of ordinances.
Some of these are really just updating our codes because
Right.
there's new things now being parked on grass that didn't exist when the ordinance was first put together. So
Yep.
we have to update and keep up with the times. So, thank you, Mr. Pettit. Second reading ordinances, we have ordinance 24-05. It's an ordinance of the town of Merrillville authorizing an additional appropriations in the 2024 local roads and street fund. What's your wishes, councilors?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Neal. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes Edwards. Open for discussion. You can see the amounts there. It's other equipment, $241,175, contractual services, $50,000, and street and stoplights, $38,000. Any other discussion? This is a second reading ordinance, but I believe that we already did the public hearing, didn't we?
You did.
We can move right on to voting, Mr. January.
All right, roll call. Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
President Bella.
Yes.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries. Moving on tonight to our last ordinance on the agenda, ordinance 24-06 on second and final reading. It's an ordinance of the town of Merrillville appropriating additional monies within the various fire protection territory funds for the calendar year 2024, not included in the current budget. The amounts are fire department repair parts, $65,000, and the cumulative fire equipment building improvements fund, $100,000. What's your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, second by Mrs. Neal. Thank you. For approval. Open for discussion.
Mr. President, just one question. I think at the first reading, didn't we discuss the $100,000, what that was, the building improvements? Didn't someone refresh my memory? Or is that building they're building, Rhonda, in back of the 73rd Avenue station?
I believe it is that building. Counselor Hardaway was actually at that meeting. I did not attend and get the
Okay.
updates from that, so I'm not exactly sure.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Because I know they've discussed a bond issue for the North Station, scuba apparatus and this building. And I guess the question becomes, do they need this 100,000? Or is that going to be part of their bond issue they're going to do later on?
Mr. Griffin, this was by their request, right?
That is correct.
Additional, yeah, they need this, John.
Maybe Trista can answer.
Yeah, Tristan.
If I may, your memory is correct that this is for the, I don't want to say shed,
Accessory building.
but thank you, that's better. And Fire Chief was mentioning that they had a variety of talents within the fire department. They were going to be doing the work themselves. They just needed this money out of their equipment fund. The other projects that you mentioned then are going to be funded with the various other areas.
Okay.
The RDC monies, the bond, all those kinds of things.
Okay.
Any other discussion from the council? Mr. January, roll call, please.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries. Very good. Moving on tonight to Board of Zoning Appeals or Large Gathering Actions. Ms. Shine.
Mr. President, we have two petitioners from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Our first petitioner is Track Fitness LLP. Sir, could you approach the podium? Thank you. Petition, Track Fitness LLP, petitioner, owner, Grant Street Properties, to allow a fitness center located at 8120 Grant Street in the CFAB Office and Research. Petitioner is seeking special exception approval from Section 21-136 to allow a fitness center in the CFAB Office and Research Zoning District on 2.04 acres. Petitioner would like to operate a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week gym. The facility will offer yoga classes, pickleball classes, strength training, and personal training. The facility will also have a licensed massage therapy room on staff. This is a new business venture for the petitioner. There will be certified trainers on staff. There will be 5 full-time employees and 5 part-time employees. Petitioner submits that the establishment of the proposed special exception will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and morals of the general welfare and will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values. The establishment will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties. Adequate utilities already exist. Proper ingress and egress already exists. The parking is adequate for the use, and petitioner has applied for a permit for the interior remodel. And this is for this petitioner only, at this location only, and for this use only.
Questions or council from the, questions from the council?
Yes.
So this is.
I have a question.
Yes.
Excuse me. Did you plan on staying open for 24 hours?
Actually, that was the initial thing. Last time when I was in a previous meeting with the zoning, I've mentioned that we are maybe considering that later. For the meantime, we've decided just to open regular, maybe 6 to 11 p.m., 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. hours, and reduced hours on weekends as well. 24 hours was something we initially started with, and then we changed our mind on it.
Yeah, because if you're going to be open for 24 hours, you will need some type of security, I would think, my opinion. And that's why I was so curious.
Yeah, as I mentioned in our last meeting here, we are not considering 24 hours right now. I wanted to see the response from the members, and if we have enough people encouraging us to do so, then we'll reconsider.
So if we approve this at this time, we do not include 24 hours
Yeah, we were not planning that anyway.
at the present
Sure,
time?
yeah, we're not planning on that anyway.
Okay,
So however, you did put that in your initial application?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
just want to
that
be
was the
clear.
initial
That's gonna
plan,
be
and
an
then we
amended
revised it.
Addition.
Right, that would have to be amended.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, Mr. Yes.
which building is this south of Gordon's?
This is the Jabay Motors?
Jabay.
The Germain
Correct, the old
Motors?
Jabay Motors building.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And the other item that's not in the report, Sheila, is, did Jabay already have cameras on the building?
It has cameras.
It has
yes.
cameras, okay.
And
so we don't.
lighting, and lighting in the parking lot, yes.
Okay.
So I did notice on the diagrams, there are some outdoor, looks like maybe pickleball courts and things like that. Would those also be in operation from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
Actually, most likely not. Obviously, first, it's weather permitted. And second of all, we were planning on doing that during peak hours, maybe, I would say 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., summer only.
And would you have a problem if we also made that a condition? I'm concerned about the residents that will soon be across the street if we have people out there playing pickleball at 10:30 at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, our first priority is to make sure that our neighbors is also living peacefully, and whatever it takes to make sure that this is happening, I'm okay with that.
Great, okay.
Can we, Mr. President, sir, can we pinpoint the hours, since as Mr. Svetnoff alluded to, this is going to be an amendment to the approval that the BZA gave you? You said Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., reduced hours on the weekends. What are your weekend hours going to
To
be?
be on the safe side, if we can do, we haven't decided yet, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. initially for weekdays, and 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. Most likely, it's going to be lesser hours than what I mentioned, just so I have some kind of flexibility.
Well, we're going to need to put that caveat, the amendment in there, so
Of course.
as we make this motion and amendment, it's going to be, you can be less than that, but you
Right,
can't, if we find out you're open, outside those hours, then.
Definitely either that or less.
Okay.
And I have another question. You are stating you have 5 full-time employees and 5 part-time employees. Will they all be working the same schedule? 10 people there at one time?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's long hours. Nobody's gonna, obviously work from 5 a.m. till 11 p.m. So it will be in shifts. Maybe peak hours, you may have 4 staff at one point, but obviously not the 10 people together.
And could I ask you, what are you going to pay your employees, full-time and
It
part-time?
all depends. I do have a manager that we just hired for the property. They'll be making $60,000 a year. That's the only person that I've hired so far. She will be the one to do the hiring for the rest of the members.
And who will be making 60,000 a year?
Lisa
The manager.
Browder,
Oh, the manager.
the manager.
Oh, that's great. Now, what about the employees?
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet. Depends on the skills. If they're personal trainer, if they're just someone that's running the front desk, it's gonna vary depending on, what they're doing over there and what kind of skills do they have.
Yeah, because your part-time will have to be at minimum wage, if not higher.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Are all of your workers going to be certified trainers or just some of them?
No, not all of them. Obviously, we need more than just trainers.
Okay.
We need people to clean, we need people to run the front desk, maybe. So yes, to begin with, we're gonna have my manager plus 2 other people that are certified trainers. Until we see more demand and more members joining, then we may have more. But initially, I know she's certified and she's instructed to hire 2 others.
Okay. And what are the prices of your memberships?
That's what I was gonna ask.
We also, that's not decided yet. We do have some kind of basic membership, and you can add on to it, because we do offer pickleball courts. We also offer recovery, massages, tanning beds, and a ladies' room only. So the starting basic member would be, I think, we're not 100% decided, but maybe $29 a month.
What sets you aside, what sets you apart from the rest of, from the other 5 fitness centers that we have in the town of Maryville right now?
Plenty, and that's the reason why I am opening up a place. I am a gym goer myself, and I have 4 memberships in 4 different places because every one of them offers something that the other one doesn't. We offer, no place around offers pickleball. Most people are tired of walking the treadmills. We still offer those for those who prefer, but many people like their cardio to be done with something more fun, something they don't feel the time and the boredom of it. So that's where pickleball/basketball, we offer volleyball along with the gym. We also offer quite a few recovery services, including a massage therapist and a sauna and a hydro massage bed.
Okay.
So we do focus on recovery more than others do around.
So what's distinguishing you from everyone else, sounds like, is you're offering more upscale services.
That's one. The second part is there's, what I've noticed, and I'm a pickleball player myself, there's so much demand for the sport and not enough places offering it. The few places that do offer it around here is always extremely busy, and you have to put yourself on a waiting list just to be able to play pickleball. So there is a lot of demand for the sport and not enough places offering the sport so far.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you enlighten me and us that don't know what pickleball is?
Pickleball is the easier version of tennis. Many of us, tennis is a bigger court. It is much harder to control the tennis ball because it's rubber versus pickleball is a plastic ball. It is much easier to use that, and the court is a lot smaller, so it does appeal more as a sport for, let's say, the older people who doesn't want to do too much running on the court. And it makes it a lot easier for people to be able to practice the sport. So it is an easier sport than tennis.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not fully famous yet, but it's getting there. It's the fastest growing sports in the United States right now.
So will your outdoor courts only be for piccolo, or will your 3 courts on the inside also be basketball, and will they be versatile for basketball and piccolo?
Actually, basketball, we already have a committed half court. We have 3 pickleball courts that can convert
To basketball?
to volleyball, I'm sorry.
Oh, volleyball.
Yeah, to volleyball. Basketball is only a half a court. It's always going to be just for basketball. The pickleball will convert into volleyball when needed, the same courts.
Okay.
Outdoor is only pickleball.
Okay.
Anything else from the council? Let me try to clarify this, make it easy. I will entertain a motion for approval with the conditions of a 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday operation, a 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday and Sunday hours of operation, and no pickleball or other outdoor activities after, let's say, 8 p.m. Would that be fine?
Sure. Yeah, after dark, it's not possible either way.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
thank you. Mrs. Uselak, is there a
And
second?
I also have another question. How is your lighting on the outside? Will you have a lot of lighting in the parking area?
There is plenty, yes. The area outside is well lit.
Well lit
Well lit, I would say, very well lit.
with the security cameras?
With the security cameras outside as well. Everything is, the facility is one of a kind, I would say, for those who are familiar with it.
Yeah, it's,
Thank you. Okay, my motion will stay. Thank you.
I'll second.
thank you, Mrs. Uselak. Second by
Yes.
Mrs. Neal.
Roll call.
Questions or comments? Hearing none other, Mr. Genry, roll call, please.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Yes.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Yuzlak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Aye.
Councilman, President Bella.
Aye.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries. Welcome to Merrillville.
Welcome to
Thank you,
Merrillville.
guys. Thank you,
Good luck.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Our
Nice
second
way to
petitioner
repurpose. Oh, go ahead, Sheila.
is Alicia Thompson. She's the petitioner, owner is EFI Indiana, and this is for special exception approval to allow a child care center. Petitioner is seeking special exception approval from section 21-136 to allow a child care center on 0.771 acres in the C3 Highway Commercial Zoning District. Petitioner would like to relocate a home daycare located at 3314 West 77th Place here in Merrillville to 8420-38 Indiana Street. Merrillville petitioner has 35 students on a waiting list. This was the previous location of the All Pieces Fit Autism Clinic. Agape Learning Academy adheres to Indiana's highest quality of early learning standards. Agape Learning Academy offers an extensive Christian curriculum that is directly aligned to the Indiana state standards. Each classroom at Agape offers an age-appropriate curriculum to support the natural and essential development of children between the ages of 6 weeks and 5 years old. Agape also offers after-school age program, which incorporates homework assistance, life skills, financial literacy, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. Agape believes in building the whole family. They also offer parenting classes and community resources to aid in the success of a healthy home dynamic. The hours of operation are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. Parking is adequate for the 8,972 square feet building. There will be 10 full-time staff employees and 3 part-time staff members. Petitioner submits that the establishment of this proposed special exception approval will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare, will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the other properties in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values. And this is for this petitioner only, at this location only. Mr. President, I would like to read a letter from Nick Shackey. This is a business park, and he sent this letter. Hi, Sheila. Per our conversation today on March 26, 24, as a neighboring building owner, we have no objections to the daycare tenant used to be located at 8420 Indiana Avenue. However, as a condition of not being objected to the tenants knowing the back fence area will be used as a play area, we kindly request hedges or landscaping screening to be placed around the fenced area to prevent neighboring buildings of having view of the playground. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Nick Shackey, Grand Corporation. And Mr. President, Mrs. Thompson has agreed to do that.
Very good. Mr. Pettit, anything to add?
No, that was the only communication. Sheila, no other remonstration?
Yes, no other remonstration.
I have a question. Ms. Thompson, I believe it was your relative that called me the past 2 summers?
Yes,
With the
we
party
use
in
Rosenbaum
our Rosenbaum
Park.
Park.
Yep.
Oh, yes. Well, I know the children enjoyed it tremendously, and I found out afterwards, well, at that time, the fire truck came in too.
Yes.
Which helped a lot. The kids loved that. So I have to compliment you
Thank you.
because a lot of people in my area, they have said that you have done a good job, and
Thank
I
you.
think so too.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments for this petitioner, council?
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit. Ms. Haynes Edwards for a second. Open for discussion. Anything else that you'd like to add?
No. I plan to still be a pillar in the community.
Awesome. Would you mind acknowledging about the screening for the playground area here for the record?
Yes. Now, I did have a question, because I
Okay.
drove around there, because initially they said that it was I'm trying to remember what the building was. But the building that I'm going into was that building,
The ATF. building.
ATF building.
They moved down the street, yes.
So that was my question, because I didn't find it.
What,
When
the
I drove
ATF
around-
building?
Mhm.
You didn't see the big building on the end with the tall rails up?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, it's right on the it's in the corner.
Okay, I'm gonna look again.
They used to be in that building, and then they
Correct.
built that building, and they moved down the street.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't have any objections to the trees or anything. That was my only question about the ATF building, because I drove around trying to figure out where it was, but I didn't see it.
Okay, sure. Anything else from the council?
Nope.
Hearing no other comment. Mr. January, would you please call the roll?
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Aye.
President Bella.
Aye.
6 in favor.
6 in favor, motion carries. Welcome, good luck to you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And another vacant building occupied.
Sure.
Very,
Thank you.
Love it.
thank you.
At least it's not another warehouse in your ward. We have no old business before us tonight. Is there any new business? Hearing none, public comment. Is there any public comment this evening? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we allow 3 minutes for comments.
Maceo Rainey, 7114 Wickham Street, Merrillville, Indiana. Good evening, Mr. President, town council members, city administrators, community members, and esteemed guests. I serve as vice president of the Prairie Creek Homeowners Association. We're a small homeowners group, but also a voting block located on 73rd and Wickham in Ward 1. Rhonda Neal is our current council representative on the council. I'd like to read into the record at this time a series of requests on behalf of the Prairie Creek Homeowners Association in hopes that our requests action can be taken at your earliest convenience. First and foremost, we're coming forth right now with a request for speed bumps to be installed within the Prairie Creek subdivision. We have approximately 42 school-aged children in our subdivision, from elementary schools to middle school students, that take the Merrillville Community School Corporation bus to and from school every day. But we have a high volume of traffic in our subdivision that seems to have a reckless disregard for the speed in that subdivision. So we're asking for support for the immediate, prompt installation of speed bumps in our subdivision. Secondly, we have a tract of land located on the 73rd Wickham corridor right before you get and turn into our subdivision. This tract of land, maybe the size of a football field, has developed into nothing more than a reservoir for trash right in front of our subdivision. And the term reservoir for trash should not be associated with any part of Merrillville as it relates to town beautification. So we're asking for whoever owns that tract of land in front of our subdivision to take proactive measures to clean it up, to cut the shrubbery, to remove the trash. We did our due diligence, and we found that the owner of that tract of land is a resident of Florida somewhere, lives out of state. So it's hard to kind of keep him accountable for beautifying our community. So we're asking for the power of the council to hold that owner of that tract of land accountable for keeping his property clean. And finally, we'd like the opportunity to recognize and honor your former colleague, our friend, our brother, our advocate, the late Donald Spann, with an honorary street named in his honor, preferably in District Ward 1, where he served over a decade as our advocate and our voice. So we're asking for the power of the gavel for this council to take action. We've been in contact with his family as well, to consider an honorary street named after our representative's honor, Donald Spann. Thank you all for listening and allowing me to put my views on the record.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment tonight?
Brian Messarch, 201 East 68th Place. I want to thank council for inviting me to the workshop on ordinances, etc. I want to thank Tiffany Thomas and Chief Newsis, also Shonda Flowers and Judge Valesco. I did a whole workflow. I'm going to be sending it to you. I had it proofread, and some suggestions were made to me regarding that, so you'll have that in your inbox. But in my investigation of the overall process of ordinances from tickets being written to fines being paid, Tiffany went above and beyond I asked a million questions, she answered a million questions. I have asked for her to be recognized as Employee of the Month. Some other things that I have found along the way, because I would like to publicly praise Tiffany Thomas, one of our code enforcers. She's an absolute doll for the town of Merrillville. The town of Merrillville is 33-plus square miles, and her patrol area is about 27 and a half. From the beginning of January to the end of March, code enforcement handled over 700 calls and wrote over 200 tickets. A huge chunk of that work is hers. Not only does she write tickets, but she has to do research and investigate things. And she gave me some facts, and me being me, of course I double-checked her, and I was absolutely impressed. Her research was very impressive. I give her that much. And I think that we really need to honor this person, because I was really astounded how much she does. We have a lot of people who do a lot of things for Merrillville, and this is a person who, it just blows your mind when you think about the list of tasks. And it also kind of brings up another thing. She, at our meeting, she had brought up the idea that she doesn't necessarily feel safe because she doesn't have a ballistic vest. And we all saw some things at that workshop that probably should not be going on in Merrillville, and that's the sort of situation. Tiffany is a wife, she's a mother. I don't know if we have any wives and mothers on council, but having some safety equipment. When I worked for NIPSCO, I probably had carried around in my car a couple grand worth of equipment. And when I went on a substation, or if I was at a steel mill, it was required. If you didn't have your PPE on, you could be terminated. The town of Merrillville should be more than willing and capable of purchasing a vest, which is about $1,000? $700. If we are, as a town, are gonna be buying $1,000 vacuum cleaners, can I have a commitment to getting a vest for our code enforcement officer? Anybody? Anybody say, yes, we're gonna do this?
We'll find the money, Brian.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. And here's the thing that I wrote, and I'm sent out. It's a number of pages long. It's pretty detailed. But here's something. I actually gave Mr. Pettit a compliment. I'm not going to tell you where, so you have to read the whole thing. But it's there. Just read through it. You'll get to it. I promise. And Ms. Haynes Edwards also got a compliment too, so read it. I've never met a person like Tiffany who's to the point where I am passionate about honoring her service. We really need to do that. And we should seriously consider adding some people to, she's busy, her co-partner is busy, and when we're talking about sending them out for people who aren't paying food and beverage taxes and whatnot, we're adding a lot of work on to a small group of people who already do a ton of stuff. We need to start thinking about hiring some people who can help out, and many hands lighten the load. So I appreciate you guys hearing me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to announcements tonight, our next redevelopment commission meeting is April 23rd at 6:15. Our next town council meeting is April 23rd at 6:30.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.